What's chirping, crickets? This is Kim from Kim Takes On. As I said, I'm Kim. Hi. And this is my co host, my co producer, my aider and abetter, and occasionally my alibi, Terrence the Wonder Duck. Terrence says hello. And we both hope you've had a really great weekend and are having a great week so far. So, today we're going to talk about a franchise that well, the weird thing is everybody always says like, well, the sequels are never as good as the original film when you talk about this, that, or the other, considering that certain films, when they developed sequels, they seem to go on and on and on and on and on. Yeah, Terrence says and on. Thank you for that. Like the Friday the 13th films. I mean, they haven't done one for a while, but for a while it seemed like there was another one every year. And other films, and some of them do turn out to have pretty good sequels. I can't speak for everybody else, but I loved the movie Mamma Mia, but Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again, I love that even more. Possibly because of Cher, because I love Cher. She's amazing. But the movies we're going to talk about today are definitely movies where we should have left well enough alone. Now, the first movie is amazing. The first movie is incredible. And the first movie probably prompted a lot of people to move to the middle of the country, just so that they weren't near the ocean because of what's in the ocean. And that movie was 1975's Jaws, based on a novel of the same name by Peter Benchley. Jaws is the story of a small town, Amity Island, that is besieged one summer by a visitor that they don't want, a giant killer shark. Now, when Jaws first debuted in the 70s, you would almost be kind of forgiven if you were an alien, if you were an extraterrestrial coming down to Earth and saw all the panic and complete what the hell that happened with Jaws. You would have thought, as an alien or as an extraterrestrial, you might have thought, my goodness, this is the only movie ever made that had sharks in it. No, that's not right. I mean, people have always had a fear of sharks. And that is actually a pretty rational fear to have, really. I mean, let's be really honest, though. And this is the part of the show. And I know some people are going, oh, no, we know what's coming. And Terrence knows what's coming, too. And since Terrence is part of the whole universe and part of the circle of life and all that, he does agree with me that sharks get a bad rap. Not quite as bad as snakes, because no one can actually point at the downfall of a religion and go, hey, it's their fault, let's get mad at snakes. Because I happen to think snakes are a beautiful, integral part of nature. But ever since, the Bible, a lot of people look at snakes as the embodiment of the devil, or just an embodiment of evil, or just icky thing with no legs. And personally, I happen to think, like I said, snakes are beautiful and integral parts of nature, and they don't feel slimy. They actually feel really nice. And sharks, whether people want to admit it or not, are also an integral part of nature. Sharks have something that they do. They eat stuff. And they do a little more than eat and make baby sharks. Not much more. I mean, let's be really honest. I don't think a shark's gonna, solve the God particle issue anytime in the immediate future. Or if they do, I don't know how we'd know it. But sharks have a purpose in nature. Now, because we don't know what it is, humans in their hubris tend to be like, oh, well, they're just big, dumb fish. And I don't think they're as dumb as people think they are. Otherwise, they wouldn't exist anymore. But they have a purpose. I mean, some sharks don't even eat meat. you know, one of the biggest sharks in the world, the whale shark, I believe they eat plankton. Their mouth isn't even made for teeth, thank goodness, because so if you ever see like an they have a outline of what a the size of a whale shark at the New England Aquarium. And if you ever get up to Boston, you definitely need to go to the New England Aquarium because it's totally a really super fun place. And they have Myrtle the turtle, and she's awesome. Hi, Myrtle. Um, but sharks have been something that people have been afraid of pretty much as long as there have been people and the ocean. And the ocean is something that people have learned to respect over the years, finally. Because people have finally stopped looking at the ocean as just another big wastebasket that we can just dump stuff we don't want. See, the thing is, the ocean is one of the few places on this planet that we can't get all the way down to see everything. There's parts of the ocean that are so deep and dark, we can't get there. We can send down, little things to go look and look around and stuff like that and look at things and see fascinating stuff. We've seen imagery of all kinds of wild sea creatures that we'd never see on the surface because they don't exist in that level of the ocean. They live way down deep in the dark. And that is very awesome and cool. And it is also scary as hell because there's a reason that the term thalassophobia exists. Now, for those of you who don't know what thalassophobia means, I will now spare you a trip to the dictionary. Thalassophobia is a fear of deep water. And while humans have tried to conquer every single portion of this planet and plant our little flag and be like, we're here, look at us, aren't we impressive? The ocean and water, specifically the ocean, but big lakes or whatever or what have you, we can't plant our flag there because we don't belong. We can't exist in the water for long periods of time without, a breathing apparatus, a scuba thing or something like that. And unless somebody actually winds up figuring out whether or not Atlantis actually happened the way they talk about it in the comic books, people have never been able to live underwater, and I think that's the one thing about water and large bodies of water and the stuff that lives in large bodies of water that freak people out is because it's not a place where humans have very much control. I mean, you can do certain things to keep yourself safe when you're swimming or doing like deep sea diving and stuff like that, which you should always have fun but be safe, and you can do both. It actually is possible, spoken like someone who's never been scuba diving in their life. But you can do things to keep yourself safe, but the thing is, you can only go so far to keep yourself safe. Now, when it comes to sharks combine a couple of very primal fears in people. The fear of, like I said, thalassophobia, the fear of deep water, and also the fear of being eaten alive, which is, it falls in with that whole self-preservation thing, The thing with most shark attacks, though, is that most shark attacks are not a case of, ooh, I'm a big evil shark and ooh, there's a nice harmless human just swimming and I'm going to go eat them because I'm a big scary shark. Nom 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 nom. That's not the way it works. Most shark attacks are done when the shark sees what they perceive as their usual prey, a seal, a fish, or something like that, which they take a bite of and then they realize, oh wait, that's not a seal. Seals don't scream like that, or what? And most of the time the shark will beat it after that. I'm not saying that always happens. It doesn't always happen, but for people who are fortunate enough to escape a shark attack, I mean, if you think about it, if the shark really wanted to eat that person, they would have eaten them, and that would have been that. I mean, I'm very sorry for people who have been injured badly in shark attacks, and I hope they all recover and have productive lives again. But, sharks are not the big, bad, evil, mustache twirling villain that Hollywood would like you to think they are. And I'm also not throwing all of this at the feet of Peter Benchley and being like Jacques Hughes, because I'm not going to do that. But his book, which is actually a really interesting read, wound up coming to the big screen in 1975 as the film Jaws. And Jaws was a really great movie. One of the reasons it was a really great movie was this. That was Terrence's impression of Bruce the Shark. Look, applaud, will you guys? He worked all weekend on that, okay? Jaws was a phenomenon. I mean, there's no other way to put it, at the movies back in 1975, because there was a lot about Jaws that kind of broke the movie mold. Usually in movies like this, when you have a predator, and a large predator, and a 25-foot long, 3-ton great white shark would qualify as large or big boned, if we want to, 3 tons. I mean, wow, that's a big animal. Usually when you have a movie that has a big bad, you see them immediately in the movie or not very long into the movie or something like that. Now, with Jaws, we had an issue. I mean, there are shots in Jaws that were taken of real sharks in real underwater situations. But for the most part, the shark action, that sounded vaguely dirty. I didn't mean it to come off like that. The shark moments were done by a mechanical shark, actually 2 mechanical sharks, named Bruce, who were named after Steven Spielberg's lawyer. You know why lawyers don't usually get attacked by sharks? Professional courtesy. Sorry. Camera got all weird because I decided to do a drum roll. Sorry. And that was my one lawyer joke. Not going to do any more. So I'm trying to actually control myself. But the problem was, this was 1975, and while those folks gave it the old college try and did a really spiffy job, I have to say that, the shark was being a bit of a diva. For somebody named Bruce, you wouldn't think he'd be that much of a pain in the butt to be like, he was a real diva about things. Every 5 seconds, I'll be in my trailer. No, it wasn't quite that bad. But the shark would break down. Something would go wrong. The fact that the shark was outside in actual water, there was problems with the foam rubber that they used to make the shark. Sometimes the shark actually sank. How'd you like to have that job? Oh, we got to retrieve the shark. Go down in the water in that dark, dank, cold water off the shores of Martha's Vineyard to get a robot shark that's staring at you with those big black eyes, like a doll's eyes. I love that line. It's so good. The thing that makes Jaws so special, and there's lots of things that makes Jaws special, but one of them is the fact that you don't see a lot of the shark. You know the shark is there. We know the shark's there from the beginning of the movie, when we've got this whole bunch of kids on the beach, young adults, let's go with college students. And Chrissy, who is young and drunk and absolutely out of her mind, I guess, goes out for a swim, and she's chased after by this young guy that wanted to get with her and winds up passed out drunk on the beach. So he managed to not become an entree as well. She goes out into the water and is attacked by something. We don't see the shark at all during all of this. It's just her getting pulled underwater, her popping back up, and her getting thrown around as much as possible by an unseen, exceedingly violent something as she's screaming in agony, and Dipwad over on the beach is too drunk to hear her or care. And she winds up being the first victim. And the body count continues to rise throughout the film. And we don't wind up seeing a lot of what happens to people and dogs. Or one out for Pippin the dog. We don't see what happens to, but we do see the stick he was chasing. And I remember being like, the shark ate a dog? I mean, that was my moment of, yeah, I was like, oh, wow, it's awful that girl got killed. The shark just ate a dog. My heart! I was, yeah, even back when. I've always been like that. That's just me. But the scene that could have been a metric crap ton worse, to me, is the scene where Alex, the little boy Alex, is killed by the shark. And again, we don't see a lot of what's happening. We know he's paddled out into the water on a little rafty thing. And we do see him flailing in the water as this, fountain of blood comes up. He's underwater. We see all the blood, and we see the torn up piece of rubber raft after everything happens, and his mother calling for him, and everybody's panicked like, oh my gosh, and all this stuff like that. Now, while that scene is really intense, I have actually been able to see some footage. You can find it on YouTube if you look for it, of a still shot that I'm like, if they had put this in the movie, that would have killed somebody. You would have had, I heard of people having heart attacks in watching The Exorcist. If the scene that they showed actually wound up in the actual movie Jaws, I think somebody would have probably had a fatal coronary. Because the scene was supposed to be that the little boy's lying on the raft, and the shark comes up and is like, he's got the raft in his mouth and just wham. And you see this shot of this monstrous head holding the raft and a dummy of the young actor that played Alex at the time. And I'm like, I've seen this picture, and you hear the saying that your blood runs cold. And considering the fact that most of the time I'm one step above freezing anyway, but I'm sorry, my blood turned ice when I saw that picture. I was like, I really do think if they'd put that scene, if they'd been able to do that scene the way they wanted to do it, I don't think anybody would have gone near the water ever again. I know I might have had a problem with it. But when we actually get a really good look at the shark, to me, it's the scene where Brody's throwing chum in the water and the shark just rises up out of the water. And of course, we get that most iconic line, they can't hear you if you say it. Oh, what the heck. We're going to need a bigger boat. I spoil him. I know. You did great. Which I always thought was really funny because it turned out that line was improvised. And the thing is, it's so real. It's such a real line. Other than the fact that I think most people would say things that would be like, holy S, we need to get the F out of here right now. We're all going to F and die or something like that. But we can't do that in that kind of a movie. And Jaws, as I mentioned when I was talking about the 70s on my last show, was a movie that I did not get to go to when it first came out because I was a very young child, and there was absolutely no way in hell that my parents, specifically my mother, who usually went to the movies with us, there was no way in hell my mother was going to take little me, who was and still does live in the great and glorious state of Massachusetts, which is on the water. She's not going to take me to a movie about a giant killer shark when I'm not even 10 years old yet. It's not happening. But boy, howdy, you wouldn't know it by all of the stuff that they used to market Jaws. There were Jaws t-shirts, there were necklaces, there were games, there were toys like little rubber sharks that you could, I don't know what you were supposed to do with them. You know, put them in the bathtub and scare your sister? I don't know. And there was a game. There was a Jaws game, which I remember very distinctly from when I was a young child. That the game was this plastic Jaws, a plastic shark, and the mouth would be open and held in place by, I think, a rubber band or something. And the mouth was full of debris, like, and bones. Charming. And all of these, like, trash and license plates and things like that. And what you were supposed to do as the person playing the game was you were supposed to reach in with this little hook thing and take out things from the mouth before the jaws slammed shut and you lost your turn. And I'm looking back at this now as an adult. I refuse to call myself a grown-up. And I'm like, what the actual hell? I'm like, who was taking young children to see this movie? I mean, I don't, But there is so much about Jaws that makes it such a great movie, which I have been lucky enough to see on the big screen twice. Once at the Coolidge Corner, which was really neat, and once at the Showcase Cinemas in Revere, back when it existed, because they took it down. And seeing it on the big screen is really, really incredible. Because I've seen it on the small screen a number of times since then, and I still jumped 90 feet in the air when we first get that real close look at the shark, and the whole thing of the end of the film where I'm like, can sharks really jump onto a boat like that? You know what? I don't want to find out. I'm just going to leave that alone and not think about it at all ever again and just go on with my life and act like everything is okay. And of course, the cast. I mean, the cast is incredible in Jaws. Martin Brody, played by Roy Scheider, who is, this guy that's just trying to exist. He's like, I'm just trying to be a good sheriff and take care of this place where I'm, where I live and stuff like that with my family and, and my wife and my kids. And these people who live here are so effing dumb that they don't seem to mind that there's a freaking killer shark out there as long as everything stays open because tourists and money. Now, there's several things about Jaws that are different from the book to the film. One of the big ones is if you go back and look at the cover of the book Jaws before the film came out, and it's a very stark cover. It's a black cover, and there's a woman swimming, and you can see the shark going up, like it's going up to attack her. And the shark looks like a shark. I mean, it's very dark and stuff like this, very minimalist. If you see the later in color picture, the shark's teeth are a mess. I'm like, they're everywhere. I'm like, that poor animal must be in constant pain because that is not how sharks' mouths look. And there were a few other things in the book that did not happen in the film. So spoilers if you haven't read or seen Jaws. For one thing, there was a whole thing about Hooper having an affair with Mrs. Brody. There was a tie-in with the mayor and organized crime Both of those things did not happen in the movie. The character of Matt Hooper, who was played by Richard Dreyfuss in the book, is killed by the shark. In the movie, we only think he's killed by the shark, and then he pops up and, oh, he's not dead, hooray. Because in the book, not only does the shark kill Hooper, the shark jumps out of the water holding Hooper's body in its mouth and then jumps back in the water. I'm like, that is the biggest middle finger I have ever heard of for something that doesn't even have hands. Never mind fingers. So, Jaws came out, made a ton of money. Everyone said, this Spielberg guy's a genius, and so on and so forth. And things were quiet for a bit. And then people started to think, you know what? If one shark movie could do really well, why not another shark movie? And we got Jaws 2 in 1978. I'm sorry, I have to look off screen to get my dates right, because numbers and I aren't friends. Jaws 2, just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water. And basically, Jaws 2 is not bad. Is it as good as Jaws, the original film? No. One reason it's not is because there's no Robert Shaw. Because Robert Shaw as Quint was awesome. I know Robert Shaw could be difficult as an actor during this film. Apparently, he and Richard Dreyfuss didn't get along. But I loved his performance. The whole scene where he's talking about why the things that he went through as a young man in World War II aboard the USS Indianapolis. And it's just an amazing scene, and he should have won an Oscar for it. We don't get him in Jaws 2 because he's dead. Tact? Odd word. What does that mean? I'm sorry. Yeah, his character is unfortunately killed at the end of Jaws, and it's really squishy and really gross. Jaws 2 is basically Jaws 1 with a filter on it. A filter of the fact that at least now somebody in this damn town knows that having a giant shark offshore waiting for people to be stupid enough to get in the water is a bad thing. That being Chief Brody, who must have a mega crap ton of PTSD, and I don't really blame him. The whole thing is that another shark has shown up off the shores of Amity and has decided that it's going to make this its hunting ground because humans are stupid and still edible. And the people in town, again, are all like, it's so disrespectful. They're all, not only that are they all like, oh, well, it's, it can't be happening again, and you're crazy, Chief Brody, and all this stuff like that. I'm like, this guy would eyeball to eyeball with a 25-foot long great white mother effing shark. You think you could give him a little bit of gravitas. You think you might want to listen to what he says. You'd think that. You'd be wrong. Because again, it's all, oh, but the tourists, but money, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what do you think people are going to start thinking about this damn town if you don't act like you give two craps when people get eaten by sharks? They're going to think you're working with the sharks. They're going to think you're some kind of weird-ass children of the corn sacrificing shark people kind of crap, is what they're going to think. It's what I'd think. But then again, I can be kind of fanciful. So we get the whole ending of, fast forward. Brody's like, there's a shark. The town's like, F you, we don't care. Bunch of people get killed or almost killed. Now, this time, some of the people that almost get killed include both of Martin and Ellen Brody's sons. So I'm not going to use this time as personal line because that's actually coming later. Gird your loins for that one, folks. And at the end of it, we wind up having Brody by himself, pretty much, save a bunch of kids, teenagers, and such from the shark by goading the shark. I don't quite know how that worked, but anyway, into biting a power line. So you have shark plus electricity plus a lot of water, and you wind up with the biggest fish fry I've ever seen. And I mean, it's like, yay, I guess. I mean, yes, I know the shark killed a bunch of people and that it was a threat and it needed to go and stuff like that. But I was also like, that's gotta hurt. I mean, it's not like the way the shark died easy in the first movie either, getting blown up because Brody shot the oxygen tank that the shark had in his mouth, which Adam and Jamie from the Mythbusters proved wouldn't work, but F you, it's movies, you know. And then things got quiet for a bit. And then somebody said, you know what? Maybe it's time we do another Jaws movie. Now, the time they were doing this, somebody had this brilliant idea, was in the early 80s. Now, I know to some people, me just saying it was the early 80s is like, why is she making a big deal out of this? And I know some people who were around in the early 80s, are all going, oh no, I know what she's talking about. The early 80s was the time when some rocket scientists decided the one thing that was missing from all our lives that would make everything complete and sunshine and rainbows and duckies and bunnies and sunshine, lollipops and rainbows was bringing back 3D. Yep, they tried to bring back 3D. Not the way they do it now. Oh no, not the way they do it now, where they have the glasses that you can put over your own glasses, or if you don't need glasses, they have those nice gray ones that you can, you get at the theater and you put them back and stuff like that. No. This is back when they had those crappy little blue and red, foil or whatever they were, plastic, I don't know what they were, paper glasses that cut into your nose. Oh, I hated those. And they started showing 3D movies on regular TV. Movies like Gorilla at Large. And one of the Creature from the Black Lagoon movies. I think it might have been Revenge of the Creature, but don't quote me on that. And they actually tried bringing 3D back to the big screen, including the classic House of Wax, the one with Vincent Price, which is actually a really good movie. And yes, that's the one they made later on with Paris Hilton and Jared Padalecki, who's more important. Hi, Jared. Biased? Who's biased? I'm not biased. I'm a member of the Supernatural family. And that counts for everything. So there. Me. But anyway, there were movies like Metal Storm, The Destruction of Jared's Sin, which I saw at the theater because I don't know why. And Jaws 3D. I also remember they did Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D, and I was like, I'm like, gee, what's scarier, a homicidal maniac coming at you or a shark coming at you? I don't really know. Also, I think Part 3 was where Jason got his iconic hockey mask, so I guess that kind of makes it slightly more important. Sorry, Bruce. Well, and actually in this film, we don't have Bruce. We have Bruce Jr. and Big Mama Bruce. this film takes place not in Amity, not even close. We're in Florida, and we're at SeaWorld. And the whole story is about Mike Brody, who has grown up and gone to work at SeaWorld, and all of the amazing things that happen there. He also gets a visit from his brother Sean, and they have this new exhibit that they're making a big deal about, this, connected right to the ocean and stuff like that and all this. And a shark winds up getting caught inside the park, and they wind up catching it. Now, this is a very big deal because great white sharks, and this is, as far as I know, this is still factual, do not last very long in captivity. And nobody seems to be able to know why. It's just one of those mysteries that we haven't been able to solve yet. But for some reason, whenever they catch a great white shark and they bring it someplace to try and keep it alive and study it and stuff, it doesn't make it. I think the longest it made it in a aquarium somewhere was a year. Somebody might want to find out and make sure on that. So they find this shark and they capture it, and it turns out this is a youngin'. This is a little baby Brucey Jr. And he doesn't last very long. And he goes belly up like your little goldfish when you were 4 years old, and you're trying to understand, why is Goldie swimming upside down? But we can't flush him down the toilet. The problem is, as they find out, so the baby shark, no, I'm not going to sing the song. And no, you're not going to sing the song either. Don't you dare. He's going to sing it. It'll get stuck in my head all day long. And I am not having that, Terrence. So we find out that the shark's mother is inside the park as well. Mm-hmm. And she's pissed. And like the old saying goes, when mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. I mean, never mind the fact that I think great whites give birth to live sharks or pups. I think baby sharks are called pups. And that they just kind of swim off on their own once they're born. It's not like mom's trailing behind them like, have you got your homework? Yes, mom. Have you got your hat? Yes, mom. It's not like that. Sharks are not known to be helicopter parents, is what I'm trying to say. So we have the whole climactic battle at the end of the film between the fierce shark and a couple of dolphins who wind up saving the day. Now, that is actually accurate. I mean, everybody thinks dolphins are all, they call him Flipper, and all that stuff like that. Dolphins can be bastards. They can be pretty damn mean and aggressive when they want to be. And I mean, having a shark wind up in your territory will probably put anybody on edge. I've seen imagery of them ganging up and killing a shark, which is really frigging intense. So I'm not saying you should be afraid of dolphins, but respect them, for goodness sake. And all throughout the movie, we have 3D effects like that. Sorry, Terrence. Terrence will be back in a minute. He has to go and get a glass of water to settle his stomach down. Sorry. He's very sensitive. But all of the 3D in this movie sucks. It is really bad. And the cast is doing what they can with what they have, which ain't much. I felt incredibly badly for Louis Gossett Jr., who had won an Academy Award the year before for An Officer and a Gentleman, and he's in this movie as Calvin Bouchard, the head of the aquarium. And I'm like, wow. I mean, I hope the check cleared, sir. And Dennis Quaid, Bess Armstrong, and Simon McCorkindale. Oh, Simon McCorkindale, who I had such a crush on at one point. Manimal himself. He plays a British explorer guy who's in love with his own voice kind of a thing, and winds up being part of the reason that the shark winds up being destroyed, even though he's actually dead. And this movie is not good. I remember thinking at the time, this is not good. I also remember thinking, well, it can't get worse. Terrence is now laughing at me. I deserved that. I really did. I thought it couldn't get worse. I was wrong. Because in 1987, we got Jaws, The Revenge. And this time, it's personal. This movie is ridiculous. And I don't mean ridiculous in a fun way. I mean ridiculous in a "are you kidding me" way. The movie starts off at Christmas time, and the first person who suggested, well, shouldn't that make this a Christmas movie, I'm going to slap. I might actually wrap some garland around my hand and slap you just to be festive. Just before that conversation grows legs and scuttles away, I'm putting the kibosh on it now. And Sean Brody, who has become a police officer, winds up being attacked and killed by a shark while people are on shore singing Christmas carols and can't hear him being brutalized out in the middle of the bay by a shark who has apparently set some sort of a trap. Okay. We find out during the film that Ellen Brody is still with us on this plane of existence, but Martin is not. Martin Brody has passed away because Roy Scheider said Satan himself could not get him to do this movie. I don't blame him at all, not even a little. So Mrs. Brody, who was very bereft over the loss of her son and still mourning the death of her husband, who she is convinced the shark killed him through fear, because apparently the shark is working with Dr. Jonathan Crane. What up to all my Batman fans out there? And she is convinced by her older son, Michael, to come and stay with him and his family in the Bahamas. So let's do a quick recap. You just buried your, what was left of, if there was anything left of, your younger brother because he was attacked by a shark. And you want your mom to come and relax and try and process the grief in a place completely surrounded by frickin' water. No, you can do it. Totally do it. Terrence is face palming right now. And he doesn't even have a palm. He's just got little wings, but he's doing it because he loves you guys that much. Yes, he does. So, she goes to the Bahamas, meets this charmingly roguish pilot named Hoagie, played by Michael Caine. Now, I know a lot of people are going, Michael Caine? Why is Michael Caine in this movie? Why the hell was Michael Caine in The Swarm? Answers on a postcard, please. No. And the whole thing goes swiftly downhill from there, because the shark has apparently followed the Brody family, or at least Ellen Brody, from Amity all the way to the Bahamas. Right. Sure. Now, I'm not an ichthyologist, and I don't play one on TV, but I'm pretty sure most sharks, specifically great white sharks, like the cold water more than the warm water. I mean, maybe I'm wrong about that. They never really taught us that at school, but this is stupid. And apparently, for those of you who thought that was ridiculous, hold on to your ascots, because apparently, as the film lurches forward like a zombie that just refuses to die, Ellen Brody has some kind of psychic link with the shark. Like she knows when the shark is going to attack right before, which, if you think about it, is really frigging useless. You'd want to know like a day before the shark attacks, wouldn't you? Warn people and crap? Nope. So, the film goes on and on and on. Again, lurching forward. We get to the big climactic fight at the end of the film between Ellen and the shark, during which the shark roars several times. Again, not an ichthyologist, but I've watched enough Jacques Cousteau to know that that's not how sharks work. At all. Ever. And she winds up killing the shark by ramming the boat that she's on into it, and the prow, or the pointy thing at the beginning of the boat, I don't know. Can you tell I don't know much about boats? Hits the shark, and depending on the version you've seen, the shark either sinks to the, sinks underwater with this big, huge gaping hole and bleeds out, or explodes. For absolutely no reason. The shark didn't eat anything that would make it explode. The shark is not made of something that explodes easily. It didn't get struck with a bolt of lightning by Zeus. Thor didn't show up with Mjolnir. Nothing. And this film hurts. At least Jaws 3D gave me a headache. This film almost gave me a nosebleed because I was just like, this is so very dumb. And that's all I can say about it, is that it's dumb. It's not even fun dumb like Birdemic or something like that. It's like they actually spent money on this. Not a lot of money because the shark looks like crap. Sometimes when we see the shark in the water, the shark looks like, the way it's swimming, I'm like, I think that shark is drunk. We need to do a breathalyzer on this shark. This is ridiculous. So because way back at the beginning of things, we're back in 1975 now. So Sherman, set the Wayback Machine. And so back in 75, once Jaws made a metric crap ton of money, a whole bunch of people also noticed this. And they decided, we can make movies about anything that will attack and eat people, and people will come see it in the theaters. Let's jump on that bandwagon. The number of people that probably got splinters in their asses from jumping on the bandwagon, you deserved them. Because of the success of Jaws, we wound up getting a bunch of films about fill in the blank decides people are tasty. One sane person tries to stop a whole bunch of people from hanging out where fill in the blank is, and the mayor, the owner of the park, the whoever's in charge, whose head is squarely up their butt, says, no, we can't close the park, beach, carnival, fish fry, whatever, because money. And then everything goes wrong. Solo guy never gets to say, I told you so, but he winds up killing the menace anyway. And this has been done with other creatures that live in the ocean. Now, some of them are creatures that live in the ocean that I will admit While I do find sharks to have an awesome, if somewhat terrifying, beauty about them, there are some other creatures in the ocean that are rather scary. They look scary. I'm not saying sharks don't look scary, they do. Like barracudas. You ever see a barracuda? That is not a pretty fish. They are not handsome animals. I mean, I'm sure they look nice to each other, but. And that gave us the movie Barracuda, which was a film from the 1970s, so you know it had a wicked, depressing ending and everybody dies and the government's out doing bad things to its own people. What, the government's involved in a cover-up? How could that be? And you had a film like Piranha and several sequels and reboots. Now, piranha fish have a pretty bad rap that they don't really deserve. I'm not saying that if somebody said to me, hey, Kim, will you stick your hand in this, thing of piranhas for a Klondike bar? No, I'm not doing that. Not even for a Klondike bar. But not all piranha are, they're not all like that. Speaking as someone, as I've mentioned before, I am a professional wrestling fan, and I've seen my share of Japanese pro wrestling matches, which sometimes can border on complete and utter madness, especially something called a piranha death match, which is exactly what it says on the tin. You had two wrestlers that were trying to beat each other up, and part of the beating each other up was the person who was thrown into a tank of piranha was the person that lost the match. That person turned out to be Masahiro Matsunaga. We're not worthy, we're not worthy, we're not worthy. He gets thrown in there, and most of the piranha are like, there's a man on me, there's a man on me, get him off, get him off, get him off. I think he got bit a couple of times, and I'm not saying that would be, fun. I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be. But piranhas get a really bad rap. There's other fish in the Amazon that will really screw you up. If you want, go look up the candiru. I dare you. Actually, do yourself a favor. Don't look up the candiru. You'll wind up with some sleepless nights if you do. Don't blame me. And we've had movies about giant killer whales going on a rampage, like the movie Orca, which I realize that the next thing I'm going to say is going to piss some people off, and some people are going to be like, well, you're a tree-hugging hippie. No shit. Orca is about a killer whale who goes on a rampage against a hunter who killed his pregnant wife, or his pregnant mate. I mean, this arrogant little human, accidentally, but still killed this orca's pregnant mate and acted like it wasn't a big deal. I'm sorry, I'm totally on the whale side here. I'm sorry. And of course, a film I've talked about before, one of my favorite bad movies, although it does kind of also annoy me. From Italy, we got Tentacles. I know some people are out there going, I've seen enough hentai, I know where this is going. This is not that kind of movie. You dirty birdies. No, not you. Not you, Terrence. You're not a dirty birdie. You're a very clean birdie. Tentacles is about a town being besieged by a giant, ravenous, extremely pissed off octopus. And giant octopus do exist. They are a thing. And the giant octopus is actually a very shy, gentle creature that doesn't go around plucking babies out of strollers to eat. Yes, the first victim in this film is a baby. Thank you, movie. For people who complain that you didn't see much of the shark in Jaws, if they saw tentacles, I think their heads would explode. You barely see the octopus at all. Again, it was a case of, I believe the model that they used sank, and they just left it in the ocean somewhere. And there have been other films where they decided, well, land stuff is too boring. Let's have something on, sea stuff is too boring. Let's have an animal on land go nuts. So you wound up with movies like Grizzly, which if you couldn't figure out it was about a grizzly bear, I can't help you. Or Day of the Animals, where a whole bunch of animals went nuts. And of course you had the Killer Bee movies of the 70s. That's BEE. Because in the 70s, there were two B's that everybody was talking about, bees and Bigfoot. That's all I remember. So, coming to the end of our little show as we're heading towards shore in what's left of our boat as Terrence paddles wildly, and we look for our bat shark repellent. If you get that joke, power to you. What's your favorite Jaws movie? Do you have a favorite Jaws movie? Do you have a favorite shark movie that's not one of the Sharknado movies, because that wouldn't work in real life anyway? Please let us know, platinumroselle@yahoo.com. It would be really great if you could click on our lovely line of buttons here. You could like, share, subscribe, tell other people about all our shows, and have a great week out there. This is Kim from Kim Takes On, along with Terrence the Wonder Duck, and we hope you have a wonderful week. Stay safe and keep rocking.